Hello and welcome to the next episode of Young Professionals for this month's SkillBASE. My name is Chris Ebeling, and today I am talking to Alwyn Hunt from the Rookies. Alwyn is going to provide us with some amazing tips and tricks on how to land your first job, what to do, what common pitfalls are in your demo reel, what not to do, what to do when presenting yourself as a demo reel, and also how to stay uh, adaptive and how to stay relevant once you land your first job. We also discuss new technologies and everything in between. I hope you enjoy this chat. Alwyn Hunt from the Rookies, an amazing platform doing amazing things, helping bridge the gap from young learners to industry. Hope you enjoy. For those of you who don't know what the Rookies is one of the leading platforms when it comes to young professionals and students breaking into the visual digital industry, anything from gaming to entertainment to development to even fashion. You know, anybody who's using digital tools, the Rookies is the platform. Without further ado, I'll let Alwyn speak to that. But Alwyn, thanks so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for inviting us on, Chris. It's been a long time. For those people that don't know, Chris and me actually used to work together
Yeah,
at
we did.
Animal
Yeah,
certainly many
so
moons
so
ago. So that probably shows our age. But yeah, I mean, the rookies platform is really to help non-professionals on their journey to get into the industry. The whole reason why we started the rookies was really to bridge the gap, and that was started 15 years ago when both Andrew and myself were based in London and got contacted by universities to help with students that were graduating and just didn't quite have the skills to get into the industry. So from that's kind of the initial idea of why we created the Rookies platform, was to really help bridge that gap. And fast forward to where we are today, and the platform is one of the leading platforms, like Chris mentioned, for supporting young people, and it's got an amazing community. And with 14 or 15 actually years of history, we have a lot of alumni and industry professionals like Chris actually who come back on and do judging and really support the platform. So without the professionals, it wouldn't be what it is today.
Yeah, the Rookies is amazing. And just to kind of speak on your, we know each other from Animal Logic. So for those who don't know, Animal Logic is, or it was, it's now called Netflix Animation. But Animal Logic was one of the leading studios in the Southern Hemisphere. So down in Sydney, Australia, in Fox Studios, who did Happy Feets, did the Lego movies, did Gatsby's, did a lot of really cool Marvel stuff and also TV commercials. And then they've later rolled into like full feature animation. And then Netflix came and bought them up a few years ago. But yeah, me and Alwyn worked back then. Alwyn, you can probably hear on his accent, he's a Kiwi, which means he's from New Zealand. For those who don't know, you know. And if you look in the background there, you'll see he's got the Hobbit book because Alwyn, you
Yeah.
worked on those movies, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked on The Hobbit for a few years. I was actually fortunate enough to be, because I specialized as a character texture artist. So I was fortunate enough to be one of the texture artists that worked on Schmorg, the dragon, and
Yeah.
and a lot of goblins and all the rest of it that went with it. It was a fantastic film actually to work on. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
incredible. So again, it's I think it's important to set the tone because you know we have some amazing aspiring artists and young professionals and students. You know these webinars, and you mentioned it really beautifully, bridging the gap, right? I mean, that's why Panorama exists as well. Panorama is an innovation alliance, a European innovation alliance, bringing schools and industry together in Europe. You know, we're so segregated over here that coming together, we actually can form, you know, a more powerful ecosystem. And our focus is bridging the gap too, right? Like we do a lot of research and we see what skills gaps are missing from you know from education to industry, and then we try to fill those gaps. We're of course not going to fill them and plug the hole straight away, but we're moving the needle, we like to say. and
mm,
um, and uh, the Rookies have been doing this for well over a decade now. So for
mm.
anybody out there who doesn't know the Rookies, please go check it out. The Rookies, I think it's therookies.com. We can send we can put
Dot
a link
co.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, the rookies dot
.co,
co. Yeah.
.co. And just you got to go in there and see. I mean, and I think one of the things we should talk about, Alwyn, and what we talk about a lot in our careers and helping schools is what does it take for a young professional a student graduating, like what do they need to focus on when they jump into and want to get their first job, right? What are the key points here? What are the key tricks?
Yeah, I think, when, like we do a lot of talks to education and to students, and I think right now it's really interesting times, and I'm sure we're going to get into the conversation about, the state of the industry and the disruption with AI and all the rest of bits and pieces. But from a student perspective, I think they can be doing a lot of work, networking, really researching companies that they want to work at. I always talk about, the sooner that you can identify your North Star
Mm,
and be able to reverse engineer where you want to go. And that doesn't necessarily have to be an ILM or a Pixar or a DreamWorks or even, Netflix. It can be, an advertising company that has a creative team. It can be any sort of industry, but the sooner that you can identify the type of industry you want to work in and the company that you want to work for, then that'll give you the roadmap of how to get there. And then, we talked about it before we jumped on, Chris, like you mentioned, it's like, making sure that your work is tailored towards that particular industry and that particular company is super important.
yeah.
I mean, we're in the middle of the rookie, for those people that don't know the rookies platform, which we were talking about, we're quite well known for the rookie awards. So we had just under 7,000 entries of students' portfolios and work submitted to the Rookie Awards this year. So we see a lot of student work, and we see the same mistakes being made over and over again. And that's where students get desperate and they'll, put all their work into the demo reel. And it really, as a recruiter or as somebody that's reviewing the work, it can be really confusing. So the more clarity you have around your work, and if you're, like I said, if you're super clear on where you want to go and you can really tailor your demo reel
Mm,
towards in that direction, it's just going to make it super clear for the person that's going to be reviewing and looking at your work.
yeah. So like let's throw some examples around there. So for example, if you're an animator, let's go with that. I was an animator for many years, and you want to go say work for someone like Pixar, right? That's of course a huge North Star, but there's other studios like Pixar that do full on 3D character cartoony animation, right? It could be Disney Pixar, it could be Illumination McGuff in France, or whatever the case may be. If you're gonna For the animators out there, if you're tailoring that, you're not gonna be showing off a creature animation. You're not gonna be showing off like rotomation, like digital doubles, because again, that's not what they do, right?
Mhm.
If you're going to go for somebody like Pixar, you want to show really strong character animation, cartoony, showing those principles, how to do little subtle character animations, but something like, you're looking at The Incredibles, you're looking at Monsters Inc., you're looking at what they do, and then you're doing animations that can fit into their, workflow, into their recipe, so to speak. And likewise, if you're going for someone, let's say Weta down in New Zealand, where they did the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movie, where you've been, Alwyn, again, you're not gonna show them then character cartoony animation because that's not what they do, right? So for the students out there, I think that's really important to understand that when you're doing show reels, you're not gonna just do one that fits all, one size that fits all. I think it's really smart to do your research, because then you're actually showing the companies that you're going to. That's sending a signal that, hey, I actually care about the work you do. I understand the work you do, and I'm trying to fit in with the work you do. And that's going an
Yeah.
extra mile, an extra step, which I'm sure a lot of these recruiters don't always see. Um,
Yeah.
and then in terms of finding that North Star, I mean, that's not always easy. I remember, I think there's a lot of students out there that are still maybe in their first or second year, even in their third year, that don't exactly know what they want to do. Hopefully, by the third year, you kind of get an idea that, hey, animation is my thing, or rigging is my thing, or texturing is my thing. Speak to speak to this kind of specialization versus generalization. And what's the balance like? Do you have to be a master of know everything but not be specialized, or should you specialize and know other things as well? Like what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to cover a couple of points that you mentioned just on that, because there was a lot of information in there.
Mm.
I think one tip, when you say do your research on, like, the type of work that the studio is doing, because actually, even when you think about Weta Effects, they're well known for live action visual effects, right? But they also did Tintin, which is
That's
full
true.
kind of 3D animation.
Yeah.
So a resource that I used to use back in the day was IMDb. And you can go on there and you can actually research companies and you can see upcoming projects about what they're going to be working on. So you can actually go, oh, they're going to be doing the next Star Wars or they're going to be doing the next whatever it is. So it's actually
Yeah.
then you can go, oh, I've actually got a year of being able to fine tune my stuff, knowing that this company is going to be doing this movie, right?
Mm.
So that's a little tip
That's a
there.
pro tip.
Um,
I love that. That's a great
yeah.
tip. Yeah.
Um, the other thing that I was going to mention there was so there was that and oh shit, I just lost my train of thought there. But yeah, I think
Well, specializing on like certain animation styles or software, or like what do you?
oh no, it's actually what I was going to say was, we talk about the North Star, Chris. I
Yes.
think, the problem as well, with a lot of young people is that they only like they go, yes, my North Star is going to be ILM, or yes, my North Star is going to be Pixar. You have to be realistic about what you can achieve, right? And with your skill, because not everyone is going to be landing their first job at ILM or Pixar.
No.
So, be realistic because, the thing is you're going to get rejected and you're going to get pushback and you're going to be going, why did I not get that job at ILM?
Mm.
Because, for us, I mean, even, like Chris, yourself and me, like you have to do a bit of a squiggly career to get to that point. So when I say that's your North Star, you might have to start over here first and then jump across here and then move there to get to there. It's not
100%.
about just your demo reel and it's going to be a
Yeah.
straight linear process. That's not how it's going to
No,
work.
you gotta earn your stripes, and each the journey is not a straight road for sure. And
Yeah.
like we can see it moving back. Like my North Star, I guess, as a character animator was Pixar. Never made it. So
Yeah.
but there's a good old saying, I mean, and it's wrong because if you aim for the moon, you land on the stars. It's actually you should be aiming for the stars and you land on the moon because the moon is closer
Mm.
than the stars. But anyway, the idea being that if you have big goals, that's great as long as they motivate you and push you, but also don't be upset and be content with where you land as well and be realistic,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
that realism doesn't always come from self. That comes from a good network of people around you, right? Having good, good community, good mentors, good
Yeah.
people you can look up to and chat to about it. There's nothing wrong with chipping away at the old block and trying to make it to that North Star. I mean,
Yeah.
it is achievable. Everything's possible, but it just takes. You got to be realistic that it's going to take a lot of work. And
Yeah.
if you
But
look
I
at,
think,
yeah, you
just
go.
to add to that, Chris, like I think, where you are now and where
Mhm.
I am now, and when you look back and you go, sometimes you'll look back at jobs and you go like, you'll be in a job and you go, why the hell am I doing this? Like, and I had a whole another career before I got into this, right? And
Yeah,
I'm like, what did those skills give me? But then now where I sit, I look back and go, well, that gave me, how to deal with pressure. It gave
yeah,
me how to deal with teams, and it was a completely different industry. But the skill set that you develop then move into this industry. So you're sometimes it's not completely clear why,
no,
you're in it. But then when you move, you progress into your career, like you working at Epic Games and me, doing Adobe, like, and asked if you'd asked us that 5 years ago, we would have gone, you guys are kidding yourselves, right? But
yeah,
it's the skills that we learn on the job, and
yeah.
it's the we also the opportunists, right? You've got to be also looking for opportunities because Pixar will be there, but there might be a really good opportunity over here that's going to give you amazing skills, and you might be there for a short time, and that's why you had to go there.
The
You know?
springboard. Yeah, yeah, that's the springboard to get there as well, right?
Yeah,
And I totally agree. And with opportunity, you got to look for the opportunities. And this is something we talk about a lot with. Well, I talk with the students and the young professionals that we have in Panorama, but also just in general when I mentor. You got to stay curious. You got to
yeah,
stay curious. Who knows what Pixar tools Pixar is going to be picking up in the future, right? And if you're staying curious and staying abreast of the newest tools, you might be that expert that they need at some point when they pick up
exactly.
something
Yeah,
a tool that you've been playing with, right? So, and it's funny you say that. Like in my career, and I had a chat. I'm not going to talk about it, but maybe you can talk about some career examples with you. But I jumped around, man. Like I've done everything from I started in compositing. I went to layout and previs and animation, and I did motion capture on Happy Feet movies. And I did other things, and I've gone into gaming cinematics, and it's been a ping pong back and forth. But
mm,
only now, right, I can see now all the tools I have in my backpack, right? So I
mm,
can speak to game development, I can speak to motion capture, I can speak to layout. Like when you said, you actually reminded me of something. When we were working on Guardians of Ga'Hoole back at Animal Logic
mm,
way back, I was still like a junior or a very young artist, a young professional basically, and I was in these meetings which were breakout meetings when they looked at every shot. And I was sitting there just taking notes. And sometimes I was sitting like, I don't know why I'm here. But I got privileged to sit in a room with all the CG soups and the director as they broke down each shot from a storyboard, saying what needs to go where. So you have like guys like Grant Freckleton saying, no, no, this needs
mm,
that's going to be fire, that's going to be a matte painting, that's going to be character. No, we're not going to see those characters because there's going to be smoke. I'm sitting there going, okay, this is cool, cool, cool. And I wasn't, but now in retrospect, I'm like, I'm being just
mm,
fed an information how to break down a shot, to
mm,
budget, right? To money, to how many artists need an hours and needs to go into it, right? So again, to the students out there, you might not be doing what you think you want to do, but you be observant and you're taking in knowledge now for free from some of the greatest heads out there who've been doing it for, centuries, dare I say centuries, but decades.
interesting.
Yeah, decades. Grant's not that old. But it's incredible because now I could use that when I start doing creative direction or producing my own works. I can break down shots in a way that makes sense and budgeting,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. And I think, one of the things is stay curious, whether it's
stay
AI,
curious.
whether it's, you're a junior going into a company, stay
Mm,
curious, like curiosity, I was going to say ask questions, but ask informed questions.
yeah,
You can come across if you're just asking questions all the time, but if they're thoughtful questions,
yeah,
you'll get a thoughtful answer back,
yeah,
but if you're just asking the same questions all the time, so be curious, ask questions, and that's the fastest way you'll learn,
yeah,
as a
and
junior.
yeah, and be ready to adapt, right? So to your point as well about even asking questions, and if you need to read the room, right? If you've asked the question and you can feel like, oh, I'm not getting answers, don't keep asking in that room, in that space, because there's a signal being sent. You need to read that
Yeah,
and to adapt to
yeah,
that. Formulate the question maybe differently with intent, with thought behind it. So then you can break through that barrier, or you do it somewhere else, right? And speaking of that, so that I think we can segue into what community means, right? Like Rookies is an amazing platform that builds up a community as well, right? There's people in there. Talk
yeah.
talk about that and what that means in this industry.
Yeah, you know what? Because we get a lot of people going, "Oh, what's the difference between the Rookies and ArtStation or some of these other communities, for example?" And I think for us, we've been around, like you said, for a while, Chris, and I think we've seen a lot of communities come and go. There's CG Society, CG Hub. There's 3D Total. They've all the CG Channel. It's still alive, but not really a community. But back in the day, like, when we were coming through, like these communities were really supportive, and you would go there to find out the latest news and jobs, and connect with people that were doing on a similar sort of journey as you, and
Mhm.
it was there was a lot going on in the community wise. So I think when you look at the Rookies, for me, what I see is like we have a real heartbeat. Like we really support people. Anybody can reach out to us, whether it's on Discord or whether it's through contacting us through
Mm.
the site or whatever it is. You will always get an answer. You will always get somebody replying back. And I think that's the difference, is that people that are part of the Rookies community feel the pulse. They
Yeah.
can feel the energy, they can feel the support. There is a soul behind it, and that is a big difference between a portfolio site and a community.
Yeah.
We just happen to be a portfolio site, and a lot of other things on top of that. But that to me is super important, because and we talked about it offline. COVID pretty much disrupted communities and destroyed a lot of communities, and a lot of people went online to try and find that. And I think like when you're a student and you're trying to figure things out, and we talk a lot about networking early on as well, because people, when you're joining communities, you're connecting. A lot of these people that you're connecting with are also going to get jobs at the same time that you are, and they might be 2 steps ahead of you, and they might get the job at Fortiche or Blizzard or wherever it may be. And you've connected with that person early on. So they're going to be the person that's going to back you up when you're applying for a job, right? So
100%.
community is super important in terms of networking and, benchmarking yourself against other people's work. It's helping you fast track your learning process and
Yeah.
getting feedback. You're connecting with more senior people, which can turn into mentors. There's a lot of goodness that happens
Yeah.
that, when you say community, you're like, oh, cool, I'll jump on and and there's not much happening. But
Yeah.
actually, that's the beauty of the Rookies platform, is that there is a lot that's happening. And when you go onto our Discord server, there is so much energy and so much giving back.
Love it.
And there's so many events. We're always organizing events to try and support people of like, hey, what is, especially juniors, because
Mm.
it's all focused on juniors. So students like the ones that are watching this, and non-professionals, right? So we're not the platform isn't sort of corrupted or being diluted by industry professionals trying to, barge in with their egos or whatever it may be. It's really only for that. If
Yeah.
if if we have industry professionals that come on, we essentially boot them off and ask them to come back as a judge or supporting the community, but they can't be on there sort of, bragging about what films they worked on and doing that. It's all about, young people.
Yeah, amazing, and that's why I mean I love the name, the Rookies. The Rookies is like a sports anecdote. I'm a big basketball fan, but it's the same in AFL, which you love as well. Your rookie season, right? It's your first season as a professional. So rookies, young
Yeah.
professionals, pretty much means the same thing. And
Exactly.
just
And ju
kind of
just to add to that,
yeah,
Chris, so when people actually come onto the platform, there's different user types. So you're either a debut, a player, a contender, or a rookie, and
yeah,
it's really
nice,
showing that, hey, as a debut, I'm really at the beginning of my journey. So you can filter, you'll get, content that is targeted towards
I
you,
love it.
so it's not you being overwhelmed by, the best artwork in the world. You can
Yeah.
actually go, hey, what are the rest of the debuts doing around the world? And they can filter based on that and be able to go, oh, cool, my work is actually pretty good,
That's amazing. And so, and it's free for students to jump on, right? Yeah,
It's absolutely free for
yeah.
students, and we will never charge
Look,
students to
it's
be part
and I'll
of
just
it.
say this to the students out there: if you're not on the Rookies, you need to get on it. And that's not a commercial. It's more of a we're here to give you guys advice and to everything that they've built with this community. To be able to go there and find people who are at your level and to be able to compare work, talk about work, even to the point like there's a few things I want to unpick when what you said, right? Being part of a community doesn't mean that you just log in and you sit there and watch people talk. You need to actually engage and also be there and help out with building that community. And I know that's hard for a lot of us out there because a lot of us are introverts that like to kind of just sit and do our work. But it's so important to build your network up by actually engaging with it. And you got to do so humbly, right? You mentioned the word ego. One of the biggest things that gets in our way is our ego sometimes. And when we're young professionals and we're starting out in this career, the worst thing you can do is to have an inflated ego and think you know everything. Because as much as your network will help you get a job, it's also going to be the same network that's going to stop you and hinder you from getting a job.
Yeah.
If you're known as and I always say this Alex Waite, Alex
Yeah.
Waite, yeah, he was my old animation mentor, and he used to always say, Chris, turn up on time, deliver your work, don't be a dick. And those are the
Yeah.
three cardinal rules in anywhere, in any team organization, whether you're a professional basketball player, you know, come to practice, do your best, and don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
If you're working in a bakery, it's the same thing, right? Or if the post office, it's the same thing. So, and it's very, very simple. But what it means is, if you have an ego and you do let that ego get in the way, people aren't going to want to work with you. You can be the greatest artist, animator, compositor, whatever case may be, but you're not going to be part of a team, and they're not going to want you back. And word will spread. I worked with such and such, and it wasn't fun. It was cancerous. He was bad for the culture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So, but then there's also the flip side of it. I worked with such and such, and he was such a team player, or she was so great. She communicated, and she did her work, and she was such a pleasure to work with. That carries almost more weight than the work itself because we know we can teach you to do the work, right? You can learn to push the buttons, but can you be a good person? Is really it's the human skills and the soft skills we talk about a lot, and those are really hard to teach, right? And
Yeah.
change because those are like embedded in us, whether it's like childhood trauma or whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
right? Those are things that are hard to unlearn sometimes. So,
Mm.
um,
Yeah, it is so simple when you think about it. You know, just to add to that, Chris, you know, as you know, the industry is very small. You mess up once,
yeah,
it spreads like wildfire.
yeah,
And I've seen people that have, you know, like, you know, whether it's releasing content too early before, you know, and then, you know, like it's just even something as simple as that. They got so
mhm,
excited because they'd worked on a film and then they showed something on their demo reel before it got approved.
yeah,
Boom.
yeah,
You know, you got a black mark against your name, you know?
yeah. Remember the Wolverine saga in Adelaide? I think that's the one that kind of made the whole Marvel lockdown. There was some stuff
Even
from World War.
tighter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, so, but hey, so just speaking, I just want to kind of stay on. So, community is key. Knowing people is sometimes you know, they say your net worth is your network. It's not about what you know; it's about who you know, and that's so true. If people know you, they will try to want to pull you back. So, be careful who you're working with, or be nice to the people you're working with. Whether it's in school, you never know. Group work in school, out into the industry. I mean, we're talking 5 years difference here. That person who you're working in the group work could be the person who is key to you being hired or your reference getting into an industry. So I think that's really important. Show reels, I also want to talk about. Like, what are like common mistakes you see in show reels? You mentioned that you see the same student mistakes. I think it would be nice to unpack that. I've got my cardinal rules, but you're the
Yeah.
professional and see them all. Let's talk about show reels and what to do and what not to do.
Yeah. It's, you know, the first thing is, and even you saying like show reel, so let's just define what a show reel is and what a demo reel is, right? As a show reel, we're professionals. We've been working in the industry for many years. We show clips, we show shots that we've worked on. It's a show. It's
Mm,
like a big company, DNEG, that has a show reel. If you're a student or a junior, you have a demo reel because you're trying to demonstrate your skills to a recruiter,
mm,
to that head, you know, head of department or whoever's going to be reviewing your work. So they're two very different things, right?
yeah.
So it's not good enough just to add work and not be able to kind of, you know, describe or be able to showcase your skills. So in a demo reel, you know, what we're looking for is really it's key moments in the process towards that final render of what you did, you know, and that whether it's animation or whether it's a texturing object or whatever it is. For me, I want to see where you started and where you finished and a couple of key moments in between. So if we take a text, you know, if we take a texturing or asset being, you know, being textured, for example, I want to see the reference images that you started with. And I want to be able to see, you know, that you laid out the UVs correctly, you've textured it, if you're doing photorealism, that you've textured it, you know, perfectly towards the reference that you started from.
Yeah.
And then the final presentation. The final presentation I'll get to in a minute because that, for a lot of people, can destroy all the hard work that you've done, you know,
Hmm.
just in the way that you've showcasing that, whether it's a black background, a white background, the way that the timing of your turntable, all that sort of stuff. Like there's nuances to presenting your work in a demo reel that are pivotal. And then, like I said, you know, having reviewed 7,000 entries, some of those things are the things that stop people getting in as a finalist or as a winner for the contest. So, so yeah, being really strategic about what you're showing in a demo reel to show your skills. We don't want a complete breakdown and, you know, screen grabs of ZBrush and screen grab. You know, like there's a difference between doing a breakdown and then doing a bit of a presentation of that asset as well. So that's one thing, because that's, you can go too extreme and do a full breakdown, which, you know, belongs on either our blog or on 80 level or something like that. It's
Exactly.
too long.
I mean,
People haven't got
sometimes
time.
sometimes people do breakdowns on a separate document, right? So then
Exactly.
you list out your shots. Like let's say you have 8 shots in your show reel or demo reel, sorry,
Yeah.
and then you have a complementary document going, hey, if you want to really see the details, then there's like a
Yeah.
paragraph on each. I use this software stacks, this process, blah 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 blah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The demo reel is really a passport. It's trying to get you an invite
Mm,
into that interview and really like, but you need to show, you know, that work. And so when you get going back to the demo reel, like consistency is key. You know, like it's very jarring if and you have been in this situation where somebody showing their work and one colored background, and then it changes color, all the focus moves
Mhm.
away from the asset that you've created or the animation that's been created. And I'm sure you can talk to animation as
Mhm.
well. Like if you're submitting a demo reel for an animation job, then you're not concerned about environments and the texturing and all the rest of it. You're keeping everything gray shaded,
Yeah.
and the focus is solely on the animation. So
Yeah.
whatever your specialty, or if you're a generalist, then that's fine. You can
Pop out
you
a nice
can
render or
contain
something.
that,
Yeah.
and be able to have your different sort of skill sets showed in different ways. But if you're sort of specializing in a certain area, then making sure that turntable speeds, the wireframes are shown if you're showing off your modeling skills. And it's done in a certain way, but it's not long. Looking at timing, making sure it's all that stuff that we talk about,
Yeah.
making sure you've got your best work, making sure you're getting opinions from other people. Like the number of people that enter into the rookie awards and they'll have four amazing assets, and you're like, oh, this person's going through as a finalist. They've got
Mm.
killer work, presented it really nicely, and then they add one more project, and you're like, oh, dude,
Yeah, why'd you
why
put
did
that
you
in
add
there?
that? What did you think that was good? You've
Yeah.
just planted the seed in my mind that you think that's good, and that's just brought the level of your work down.
Exactly. I want to speak to that because we see that a lot, and there's one thing I would say is less is more. It's quality over quantity, right?
Yeah,
I've seen animation clips of 20 seconds, and I go, damn, I want to see more. Like in 20
yeah,
seconds, it's enough to show or demonstrate your skills in a certain discipline. And
yeah,
like you said, you want to create like it's like an ad. It's an advertisement for yourself. Pretend it's a 15-second ad or a 30-second ad. And how do you hook in me, the person who wants to engage with your services, right? The client. It's just like creating advertisement. Within the 3 to 5 seconds, you need to create a hook. I need to be like, okay, this is
yeah,
cool. And then you want to go, 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 take me on a journey. Hopefully it's emotional with some cool music, whatever the case may be, and then finish strong with your name. Then I go, okay, Alwyn Hunt, I remember that guy. That was sick. I want to see more. That's the
yeah,
invitation to, like you said, now the door is open for an interview. And this is where you can elaborate on your work. This is where you can talk more about what you love, and all those things. And that's when the true contractual, almost the steps to a contract are
yeah.
made, right? So, for the
Yeah, and
students
that's
out
the
there,
kicker,
yes.
man.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the kicker. It's that feeling of like, oh, damn, I want to see
I wanna see
more.
more, yeah,
Because the problem is students go, oh, you know what, I'm just going to put everything that I've done, and I
exactly,
like, and then like, well, that's and to your point, like we've seen people submit entries that is just one asset, but it's done at the highest
exactly,
quality. And you're like, oh my god, that is amazing, one asset,
yeah,
and that beats somebody that's submitted four.
yeah,
So it's like that feeling, like you nailed it. It's like, damn, I want to
wanna
see
see
more.
more, yeah,
That's what the demo reel needs to be.
yeah, exactly,
Because when you're reviewing and you've got 30 demo reels to review, that's what you've got to leave that viewer,
mhm.
wanting,
You
saying is, damn, I want to see more.
you gotta stand out, right? And so, again, this is also where you wanna use the Rookies platform, and I always advise students is like, "Look, you're putting together a demonstration of your skills. What's the best way to understand if your skills are going to be as good as the rest out there? Well, go to the rookies. Rookies has, I don't know how many people you go, let's thousands, 10,000s of people in there, like students from all over the world, from all walks of life and all different disciplines. Put yourself up next to them and be critical. Say, is my work as good as that? Is my work as good as this? And then, like you said, you can filter it down into the different kind of tiers, whether it's a rookie or what was the starter one called?
Debut.
Yeah, debut. Then you can see how you measure up against your peers in the tiers as well. And that's where now you're going to be able to measure. It's just like getting on the scales if you go to the gym, right? And seeing your weight go up and down, up and down. This is you setting a baseline to then measure, oh, am I doing what I need to do to increase or lose weight, whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
So
The
use the,
other the other ref
yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chris, the other reference point on the site itself is if people go into actually, the rookie awards. So
Mm,
we archive all the contests. So if you're like, hey, you know what? I think I am kick ass. I've got amazing work. Then you can go and benchmark yourself against the winners of the
yeah,
rookie
nice.
awards, right? So for any of the categories, you could go and, okay, cool. I'm doing game design and development. what does the winners' work look like? Because they're the ones that are getting the
Exactly.
opportunities, winning the job, and getting the career opportunities and so forth, right? So
Exactly. And we kind of skipped a step here. Specialization. I still want to come back to that. Like, what's your feeling on specialize? So I can only speak to myself, and this was 20 years ago. I went through. I was a generalist start. I did ZBrush stuff. I did rigging. I did all sorts of things. Like I said, I started as a compositor, so I tried a little bit of everything. But I knew I wanted to animate, right? And the tip there, and what I'm going to say, and I've said this on a previous show, previous webinar, is I took the first opportunity given to me to get into the industry. So I took a job, I took a rotomation junior comp role going into the industry, but then I got in, and from there, I then everything we talked about, found a community, found the animators, found mentors, and I continued to animate on the side. For me, I always wanted to animate, but I could do all these other skills too. And for me, that saved me because I could jump around into different disciplines. When there wasn't an animation job, I could jump back into compositing. I could go and do other things, right? Layout, previs, whatever the case may be. Um, how important do you see, and what do you see out there now with the rookies? You seeing all these students? Are people specializing, or is it generalizing? What's your advice for students or young professionals to get in there?
yeah, I think back in the day, like we specialized, right? And I was similar to you, Chris. Like I actually started out as a generalist at Animal Logic, so I was working
Mm,
as part of that team. But I was a generalist because I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and it was because I'd come sort of like had come from traditional painting and fine arts. When I found texturing, that was the closest thing to that, and
mm,
when I found that, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. But I think for a lot of people that are on that journey, that discovery comes later on. And I think, to your story, it's you can't be scared about jumping around and just starting somewhere, because starting somewhere it'll give you that skill set from that particular role, but it'll also springboard you to the next part,
mm,
right? And you'll go, okay, I didn't really enjoy compositing, but I did enjoy lighting because, I saw all the lighting
exactly.
passes come through, and then so it will inform you.
Yeah.
I think what I'm seeing now is that a lot more people are not specializing per se in one particular discipline. They're looking at, whether it's texturing, modeling,
Mm,
or whether it's, it's a
yeah.
few areas. And there's a good reason why they're doing that, is because you're going to get more opportunities because you know more than one specific skill.
Yeah.
So you're able to go for a number of different jobs. And I think, there's with what's happening in the industry, there's a lot more smaller companies that are now splintering out and opening up. So, if you've got a few different skills, you're going to get opportunities in these mid-tier,
Mm,
companies. And when you look at where AI is and where it's going, you can see that a lot of these bigger companies are probably going to downscale because of the disruption that AI is going to cause with it, and there's going to be a lot more middle-sized companies. So I
mm,
think thinking about what the future looks like, being able to have a few different skill sets is going to help you.
100%.
I think when I look at texturing and I look at AI, I look at, replacing, AI to, get rid of creating UVs and all these bullshit tasks, and it's going to get to a point where it's actually going to texture assets for me, but it's going to give me the creative time at the end of it to go, okay, well, how do I make this really unique and add my special touches to it so that it doesn't look like it's AI generated?
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people philosophize, what's the word, philosophizing,
Yeah,
philo- philo- yeah,
philosophical
philosophical about where
chatter.
it's all going. And I think we've been down this road. We saw a lot of it with metaverse and a lot of that sort of stuff. And there's trends that come and go. I mean, this is not a trend, it's definitely here to stay. But it's like, I think, and we'll probably talk about this, but I think, as a student, you need to embrace it, you need to lean into it. And a good example of this is when I'm currently doing a partnership with Hugo Boss and Instituto Marangoni, which is a top fashion school in Italy.
Mhm.
And the students have been given a design brief from Hugo Boss. And there's one girl there that's really lent into the AI side of things and just really exploring all the tools that are out there. And, I said to her, I said, you know what? what you're doing is fantastic because you're actually learning and you're figuring things out. That's going to become a real asset to you
Yeah.
because even Hugo Boss are moving into it and actually exploring it. But if you're a student and you've explored it and you know what the capabilities are and how to push things and how to save money and
Mhm.
how to optimize and really use the tools, still doing what you do because there's still a process involved and there's still a lot of development that needs to go happen in AI to really get to that point where it's going to be, utilized in a commercial space, as a full
Yeah.
pipeline. But you can see it's already disrupting certain disciplines and
Yeah.
areas of the pipeline already.
Yeah, and without getting too philosophical,
Philosophical,
I
that's
think
the word.
I think we can see that it's going where it's going, right? And it's
Yeah,
you mentioned like metaverse, and you can mention like blockchain, and you can mention all these trends that went up and the bubble burst and they came down. AI hasn't burst; it's just kind of slowly still just going up, right? So it's not this. The curve is exponentially growing, and that's also one of the reasons why it's important that we talk about these things and also are curious to new tools. Like, and I've said this before, and I said this to the students in our next gen lab, which we're going to be running here in August. We have a lot of webinars with them, like getting them onboarded, and AI comes up a lot. You got to embrace it. You got to know what it's doing because, Alwyn, if it's me and you going for a job and we're exactly the same on paper, experience, same. Let's just say we're identical twins, and you know AI tools and I don't. Who do you think is going to get hired?
yeah,
I mean, like you said, every business is looking to use this. It's disrupting every business from the lawyers to
yeah,
banking to
yeah,
medicine to big pharma, etc. It's disrupting everywhere, and it's taking away all that repetitive task, but it's also doing way more. And if you
yeah,
are have the curiosity and can call yourself a bit of an AI, not specialist, because I don't think we're there yet, but you know some AI tools and understand it and have curiosity to it and show that aptitude. And I think you're dead
yeah.
set going to have an advantage in the hiring process, right?
Yeah, I think,
So
being able to show that those some of those processes in your demo reel,
yeah,
and going, "Hey, I used AI to
yeah,
get me to this point, and it saved me." That's that what
that's
because
smart.
people are just not doing that right now in the industry, right? And if that's gonna like, "Oh, wow, you did that in like 2 days? That's
Hmm.
crazy."
Yeah,
Like, tell me more about that. And what
yeah,
they're not, then you've got their attention,
yeah.
and it's like,
Let's not forget it's a business that you're walking into, and a business
yes,
needs to make revenue, it needs to make profit. And if you can you can show skills that are going to make this business more profitable. I mean, it's the same thing. Let's just take AI out of the picture. They hire me as an animator because they know I can deliver 6 seconds of animation a week, if not more. So I'm good for business. But I'm also good as a cultural person. I'm good for the culture of the business, which
yeah,
again makes people positive and happy, and then we work better. You know, happy people make better work, right? And good business, good culture creates better work. So there's all these things that you got to consider, and I think for the young professionals out there, you got to look at if I'm joining Pixar, Pixar is a business. If I'm joining Disney, Disney is a business, et cetera, right? And
yeah.
and and I hate to be put the capitalistic spin on it, but that's that's the facts, right?
But you know what, Chris? On the flip side of that, you and this is something that I learned, as I was going through as well. You have to treat it like a business,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So what I mean by that is that, you see a lot of, like right now, there's a lot of layoffs and
mhm,
there's a lot of, disruption going on in both visual effects and games. But for me, what and it's like you see a lot of companies and a lot of people that are working overtime and doing this and doing that and trying, you've got to have the mindset like as I've got to treat this like a business myself. So when I say no, I'm not doing overtime, it's because I've got a family and I've
yep,
got my own well-being to look after.
yes,
You've got to, you can never like, there's the, oh my God, this is the dream job. I'm working at Pixar. But the point is,
yeah,
to your point, they are a business, and
yeah,
if they need to let people go, it's a business.
yeah,
So you should have that same mentality as like, no, I'm not doing that because this is not good for my health, right?
100%,
There's a fine line between getting into bed with the company
yeah.
and treating it like a business and having that mutual business respect for each other, right?
Love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're actually doing so. We're doing entrepreneurship and innovation this year for Panorama. It's one of the things we're focusing our research on. So there'll be research coming out on that, which is great. But we're doing it in this 2-week workshop in August in Viborg, Denmark, in the animation workshop. And we're focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. And what I'm also telling the students there, this is not about you guys starting the next Fortune 500 company or the next startup. It's for you guys as well to understand what makes a business tick, so you can better, like you said,
Yeah,
understand the companies that you were working for, so you can better go in and see it from a business perspective, and situate yourself in a way more, impactful and
yeah,
operational. You can go in there and
yeah,
understand exactly how it all works, so then you
yeah,
can be a better employee as well. And I
yeah,
love what you're talking about in terms of sustainability. When we talk about sustainability, we're not just talking about green energy or plastic waste or rainforests and all that. We're talking also about our own health. How
well-being.
do you
Mm,
sustain your own well-being, right?
yeah,
And I think that's a really important thing, that we don't go in there and think we have to work 70-hour weeks and burn. We've seen it time and time again. I mean, the average lifespan on an artist usually is around, I think, 7 to 10 years. I think people burn out
mm,
pretty quickly because
mm,
you feel like, oh no, I have to do overtime. No, you don't. You can easily go
yeah,
up and say, hey, look, I can't do this because but you're going to deliver what your contract says you can deliver in your 9 to 5, in your 40 hours a week or whatever the case may be. It's 40 in most countries. I think it's 37 in Denmark. But you can deliver that, and then you just got to be efficient, of course, and focused, right? It's not about going to work and not doing the work. You got to turn up on time, deliver your shots,
yeah,
and be
yeah,
nice to work with, right? So yeah,
right.
so that's awesome. Let me just think of where we can go to next. So we talk about specialization, and I agree. Now it's more about, you need to understand, for as an animator, know your animation, but also know the departments that sit around you, right? So for me, always it was about understanding rigging a bit, so then I can,
Mm,
because we work closely with riggers, but then also understanding camera and previs and layout and how cameras move, because animation, storytelling, performance, it's all about one of the principles is composition, right? Staging, and of course cameras tell the stories as well there. So I was able to kind of jump from layout to previs to animation, and kind of run around there, which also then made me jump to becoming a animation director and also creative director later on, with all the different tools that I had in the bag.
mm.
So um let's just kind of go, so in terms of adaptability on the job, what role does adaptability play in long-term career success?
Oh, I mean, it's critical, right?
Mm,
Like it's being I think, like being adaptive, being that team player is it's critical because people want to know that you're not rigid, like there might be a time, like like I said, I specialize as a character texture artist, but there are times when somebody goes, "Hey, I need this prop done," and it's a background asset
mm.
that no one's ever going to see. And or somebody's like, "Hey, I'm doing some lighting shots. I've set up the light rigs. I just need to, you need to be adaptive because that become you're a team player, and that's I think out of all this, Chris, you can have the most amazing technical skills and be the most amazing artist. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get that job if you're not that team and all the things that you talked about, a team player, you're not adaptive, you're not you're not you're not showing initiative. Like initiative to
That's
me
my
is a
favorite
big thing
word.
as
It's my
well.
favorite word. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Initiative, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like when there's nothing more rewarding when you're working away and you've like got somebody, like a junior student, junior artist or whatever it is that comes up and says, "Hey, you know what? I was thinking about what you were doing on this thing, and I was like, hey, have you thought about even if it's a junior artist, like and just to dispel all uh myths about you're a junior artist and you work over there in the corner and no one ever talks to you. Like when I was working as an art, and sometimes you get artistic, like the artistic blocks, sometimes I'll be doing shit,
Yeah.
maybe not artistic blocks, but when I'm collecting feedback, I collect it off everybody. So it could be the junior artist, could be the colleague working behind me, beside me, whatever it is. But sometimes those junior artists would say one thing that I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
that's good. The
Yeah.
rest of it might have been not on point, but there could have been just one little nugget in there that
Yeah.
I'm like, didn't see that, and it sparked something, and I'm like, that's
Exactly.
awesome, right?
Exactly.
But I think as a junior artist, like staying curious, and staying curious means if you're there's one thing to be learning on the job, but there's one thing to be really learning on the job, and
Mm.
that's taking notes and not asking the same questions over and over again. When I see somebody taking notes in a book, I'm like, that's awesome. They're going to go, like that's a big tick to me.
Yeah.
Somebody that's showing initiative, a big
Attentive
tick to me.
attentive listening, right? Like they're there,
Attentive
they're present.
listening, and
Yeah.
actually, like, there's those little things. That person is always going to win out over the person with the technical skills.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always be curious, always be learning, always be growing. Like it's nothing's permanent, and I think
Learning never stops, man, as you
yeah,
know.
this industry changes all the time. Whether you were a 2D animator going into 3D or 3D, character animation going into motion capture, whatever the case may be, there's always new technologies coming.
Yeah.
We always got to
So
stay
just a
curious.
tip, professional
Yeah.
tip, because people are probably looking at this going, well, that's great. Alwyn and Chris, you can talk about all that, but how do you learn that?
Yeah.
How do you learn it? How do you learn it? So, my tip is, looking at events, looking at community, going back to
Yeah.
community and really, is taking yourself out of your shell and engaging,
Engage.
because you can practice soft skills when you go to, whether it's SIGGRAPH or ANSI or FMX or whatever it is, any of these live conferences or events, and actually, you can talk about your work, you can talk to other people, you can practice all these
Yeah.
things, right? Listening and knowing that, like, there's just some things which are really fundamental that you can actually practice and work on yourself,
Yeah.
by doing, going to events.
And it is
But have
hard.
that list.
Yeah.
Have that list. What is
Yeah.
it? Listening, asking informed questions, being able to speak, to your demo reel, and
Hmm.
not be there for an hour, but it's like an elevator
Yeah.
pitch. You've got 5 minutes. You've just bumped into an industry professional, and they've said, "Show me your work."
Yeah.
Oh, my work. Oh, I haven't downloaded it. It should always be downloaded on your phone or on your device. Don't rely on internet. All this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you get that opportunity, be there, ready to go. Cool. I've
And,
been waiting for this
and
moment.
And to your point, make the opportunity, right? Make it
Yeah.
happen. So like, I love that you're making that list. And on that list, I would also say for some people out there, and I know because there's some people, there's neurodiversity and there's people who are super introverted. But really, and I know it's really hard, and I'm not here to say what's right or wrong, but to put yourself out there, make challenge yourself, right? Say, okay, I'm going to this meetup. It's a meetup. It's in town, a CG meetup, or it's an Unreal Mixer, whatever the case may be. I'm going to talk to 3 people. Have that as a goal. I have to talk. I have to engage 3 conversations. Just that start
Yeah.
might get you there. Even just you going there might be the first start, right? That might be
That
the
is the
biggest
first
hurdle.
start.
The biggest
Yeah.
hurdle is actually identifying and going. And then maybe the first time you go and you're silent, case maybe try to see if you can engage with people. Next time, try to up the ante. Like always, try to see how you can progress, because you can break down these barriers that are holding you
Yeah.
back, right? And I think that's a super
Mm.
good tip. Again, coming back to community, knowing people is key in this industry, not only during the hard times when, let's say, there's massive layoffs or, COVID. You want to have somebody who you can lean on to work with, show your work with, talk about the latest Pixar movie, whatever the case may be, or the latest game from Rockstar. Conversation in the industry, the birds of your feather, your tribe, they're out there.
Mhm.
There's many people out there. So that's
Yeah, I love that term that you used before with your net worth,
yeah, your
network,
network is your net worth.
network.
Yeah. Yeah, your
Yeah, that's
your
awesome, man.
net worth is your network. Yeah,
Yeah.
your net worth is your network. It's not just about, yeah, if you got a good, and it's not about having a massive network. It's about having a few key people who you can lean on,
Yeah.
right? It's just like friends. You don't need a million friends. You need 3 or 4 really good friends that you can,
Mm.
that when times are tough, you can lean
Are
on,
we
right?
friends?
We're friends, mate. Still, for now, we're still friends. It's an on and off thing with me and Alvin.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
It's a
friends.
love-hate relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, so just I got one more question
More
in
love
terms.
than hate.
Yeah, more love than hate for sure. Yeah, it's the yin and the yang, right?
That's it.
Are companies doing enough to support entry level talent? What's your take here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think some companies are, not all companies are.
Yeah,
I think, when you look at companies that, like when you look at the Rookies platform, for example, there are, studios that are offering internships, that are providing career opportunities, and are really, pushing the envelope in terms of supporting young people.
yeah,
Um, and I think, that's fantastic. And then, then there's, there's, I guess there's kind of things like when and you probably, I've found this as well when especially when you're moving around studios. Some studios will have a really good induction,
Mm,
and you have 2 weeks where you're spending on job and you're learning the tool, because every studio, that's another thing I want to say, is like every studio that you go to will have their own
mhm,
proprietary software, their own pipeline. So even when you've worked at one, like I remember going to Weta after working at DNEG and MPC, and it was completely different
different.
again. And you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm starting back at ground zero again,
Yeah,
So you're going back to, you're always learning.
yeah. Always be
We're not
learning.
joking. You're always learning. But yeah, back to inductions and onboarding processes. Some companies are a lot better than others.
Mm,
Um, and I think, you know, again, when you look at smaller ones, they're probably not as organized, and you're kind of hitting the ground running and you're thrown into the fire there. And that's
yeah,
why I think when you've got more than one sort of skill set, you're able to, going back to that word
yeah,
adaptable.
yeah,
You need to be really adaptable when you're, kind of entering into those kind of situations as well.
yeah.
Um,
And
but
this is
yeah,
also where initiative comes in. When you come into a company and their processes aren't there, I mean, you're also there not just to jump in and just do what they're doing. They're bringing you in also to help make them better, right? So there's
that's right.
opportunities also to kind of document new processes, new workflows. I mean, on every movie, every new movie that we worked on at Animal Logic, even, it's a different process. So for the Lego movie, we're creating different documentation on how to use the rig, how to animate the characters, where to find certain assets, et cetera, and how the brick tool works, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're always learning and adapting to new processes. Um, but in terms
Yeah.
of yeah, what can we do? What can we do to help
Yeah,
more
I
entry
think,
level support? Like,
well, I think that's, when I look at the rookies platform, in terms of trying to help define career pathways,
mm,
when you look at it, it's not always about, hey, I went to this university or I went to this school and then I got this job. When you look at the types of people that are part of the platform, they're the ones that are, they're learning themselves. They completely
yeah,
self-taught, and then they were part of a community. They entered the rookie awards or a contest. They got their work out there. They got noticed. They got a job.
yeah,
So there is multiple ways, but I think being able to show career pathways, I think is
yeah,
really lacking in the industry.
mm,
For
mm,
a lot of people, they're like, okay, I've studied,
yeah. How
but
do I
what
get it?
next?
Yeah, what's well, yeah,
What next?
that's true.
I think, feedback is critical. Like, even once you've graduated, it's like you should be always looking to improve. So again, coming back to the rookies in terms of putting your work up there and getting industry feedback, or whether it's entering in. The good thing with contests is, that you're getting your work out there and getting exposure. You're competing against other people. You're getting noticed.
Mm,
But with the contests that are on the rookies platform, we also provide like feedback, right? So
yeah,
every week of that contest, we'll go, hey, this is, so there's a lot of good reasons why contests are actually really good as well. I
yeah,
think, just yeah, better feedback. Like, that's, students go, oh, cool, I finished, and then they apply for a job, and there's no feedback loop,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
oh, and we get it. There's just, they don't have the
Don't
resources
have
in
the
industry to
time.
be able.
Yeah,
But we're like, it just leaves a big void for
yeah,
students that are trying to go, well, what can I do and what can I improve on, right? So
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
again, I think that's where community informs you, or
Exactly.
having mentors. Like, mentors is a big thing right now. You're seeing a lot of people that are starting their own mentor programs, and
Yeah.
and for us on the rookies, we're actually developing an area which is supporting mentors, because a lot of students will come out of higher education and they still feel like they're not quite where they need to be.
Mm,
So having that little kicker with mentors, being able to, it's shortened, it's really
yeah.
intense, but they're the ones that are kind of really helping those people then springboard
Blossom.
into a job
Yeah, yeah.
as well.
It's like a
So looking at,
career counselors, right?
yeah, career counselors.
Yeah,
There's some guys that we work with that are amazing, that really are looking at more the strategy of
yeah,
getting a job, rather than, hey, you've got your portfolio, but maybe you're presenting it in the wrong
wrong
order,
way.
or hey, what's the how are you applying for jobs, who you are targeting, what's your LinkedIn profile look like, how often, like, there's just
That's amazing.
strategy.
There
LinkedIn's
is.
another whole
Linked,
strategy.
and I was gonna say that. I was actually gonna finish up. If we're gonna finish off here, but I'll let you have the last word. But for students out there or young professionals, if you do not have a LinkedIn profile, go make one. If you do not have an online portfolio, go make one. A LinkedIn profile combined with an art station can be enough. But look, the rookies is out there. And with everything we've just talked about today in terms of the peer review you get there, the competitions, the community in there, it's a no-brainer. You need to go in there and actually you should have a LinkedIn, you should have a rookies, you should have if you're a modeler, especially and texture artist and that, you should have an art station. But there's all these. Those are like the three things that you need to do to present yourself. And you can skip the art station if you've got your own online profile, for example. But for everything that's just been said and done about the rookies, the judges, the peer review, the career counseling, the competitions, the way to look at other people's show reels and see who you're measuring up against. If I was a student all over again, take me back 20 something years, I would be doing that, you know? And the LinkedIn one is especially key because LinkedIn is where you're going to be noticed. And people might say, "Oh no, it's just like Facebook or not." It's not. It can be a bit wishy-washy, but make sure you also triage who you're following, right? And make sure you follow the right people and then watch who those people are following and then follow those people. Then you're going to create this beautiful feed. For me, I spend at least an hour or half an hour to an hour a day on LinkedIn because I go in just to look about what's new and upcoming and new technologies. What's happening with,
Mm.
with Epic, because I work with Epic. That's where I get a lot of the stuff what they're doing as well. And seeing who's out there doing cool stuff with Unreal Engine, but also AI, right? For me, real time and AI is the space that's really going to be blowing up in the future. I don't see it going any other way. So those are the two kind of tools I'm like staying
Yeah,
like 100%
I'm the
obsessed with.
same.
Yeah,
LinkedIn for me, like, and
LinkedIn.
that's even again on the rookies platform, maybe you've entered a contest, you've got some badges, you've entered into the rookie awards, you've got some, some accolades, whatever it
Mm,
may be. They are the building blocks to your LinkedIn, right? Where you
exactly.
can then post them and
Post
say,
them.
hey, look, I got it as a finalist in the rookie awards. That's the beginning of your LinkedIn.
Or
And LinkedIn is where you're like looking at those North Stars or those companies that you've been researching. And like Chris said, you're following them because what
mm,
do? That gives you insights into the types of jobs that they're posting because they're always
mhm,
posting on there. You can connect with junior artists that are part of that company. They're
exactly.
the ones that are more likely to accept your invite.
Yeah.
Once you get in there, then you can be messaging that person, go, hey, what's it like to work there? What's the conditions
Mm,
like? They're more likely to correspond with you than somebody that's a recruiter in that company.
yeah.
So there's groups that you can be following, building your. I think to me, LinkedIn as a professional social media platform
Yes.
is the most important thing for a student. If you want to go and build a profile on Instagram where you're showcasing your work and getting follows, then that's great. But if
Yeah.
you want to actually be noticed in front of industry
Yeah.
professionals within companies, then LinkedIn is the key.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, I just want to say, don't expect a response when you you like ad hocly send somebody a message on LinkedIn. I get a ton of messages. I'm sure you do, Alwyn, as well, and I can't answer them all. I do answer the ones that come with like which aren't done by AI. It's pretty clear when people are just like
Yeah,
spamming with AI or whatever these like apps are called. What they're trying to just create leads. But when it's students that reach out, usually I always have time for them, man. I can always
I'm the
find
same.
time to say something,
Yeah.
back or point them in the right direction, right?
Mm.
But again, don't expect an answer. I think the wrong thing you can go in is have expectations. It's like when you go for a job and you send in a resume and a show reel and you don't hear anything back. That's just how it is
Yeah.
sometimes. That's just how it is because they are so busy and that you got to imagine that they're getting thousands and thousands of CVs. Yours didn't make the cut. That's okay. Get on to the next one. On to the next one. On to the next one. Alwyn, thank you so much for your time. Like, what's your best piece of advice here at the end of the day? What's your last piece of advice? I mean, you've given so much gold, so I think there's plenty there. But what's your last piece of advice, and where can people find you if they
Yeah.
want to know more about the rookies and yourself?
It's pretty obvious on LinkedIn. I accept everybody's invite. Like you can reach me, message me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on there. But yeah, last bit of advice. I think, just with all the stuff that we've discussed, Chris, I think there's some key words that came out of that. I think adaptability, consistent learning, being a team player, all this stuff that is going to make
Mm,
you a better person and building relationships, whether it's internally within in a job or whether it's externally where you're
mm,
trying to build your network. I think, just be active. Like the time right now, it's right now as a student, because a lot of students go, "Oh, that's cool. I've got time. I'm gonna do the schoolwork and all the rest." But actually, the best time to be networking and building all these types of
Mm,
skills is right now because you've got time, right?
yeah.
So attending events and being active on communities and entering into contests and all this stuff. It's just, yeah, I think my advice would be just get busy, get
Put your
active,
put
get
yourself put
get
yourself out there.
yourself out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
awesome. Alwyn,
Yeah.
thank you so much, man. You're awesome. You're a legend in the game, and what you're doing with the rookies is absolutely amazing. It is bridging the gap. It is helping young professionals, and hats off. You got you and Macca. Shout out to him as well, Andrew McDonald, your partner, who's also worked at Animal Logic, a wonderful guy. You're doing great work, and the industry would not be the same without you guys. So hats off to you
Thanks, man.
both, and thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having us on, and good luck to everybody. Reach out.
Yeah, ciao.